This is Dave and Mackey's Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. It's home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations in the chat room. It's also a great place to get your merch. And do support the station and donate if you can, or just pick up some merch, because that's also contributing to the station. That'd be great. You know, you can catch us on air, online, or anywhere on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere, of course, or you can listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. Still, Grace Tabletop digital radio. Send me one. Send me one. I'll talk it up a bit more. I've only mentioned it every single episode for 10 years. That's all right. I'm sure if there's any sales attributed to me mentioning it, that would be a tremendous get. If you miss Solaris' show, don't fret. It's okay. It's available in the archives. And not only can you get Solaris' shows, you can get our shows or any host shows for that matter. Anything that goes to air is recorded and put into the archives under the respective title of their show name. And they do go back for a few years, so do yourself a favor and do that. They're in MP3 format too, so it's not difficult to listen to, and you can binge it. So, you know, you may not catch something live, so what? But you can listen to it when you want to listen to it. Isn't that what we do these days anyway? That's all we do. We just watch things when it's convenient. Gone are the days when you used to sit in front of the television as a whole family and watch something because that was the only opportunity you had. We kind of edged into it, I suspect, with video cassette recorders recording our shows and then fast forwarding through the ads. But now we have it in a whole new realm. That was only the tip of the iceberg. Now we can watch full movies without interruption. Digital. Anywho, back to it. So tonight, Solaris, you missed a great show, by the way. It was the Cybwitch Cafe, and Nish and Solaris were on, and they were talking about the supernatural and other occult topics. Always a great show. I've got to say, Solaris is world class, and I know you're listening to me, Solaris, and I'm not just blowing smoke. It's real sincerity from both Mackie and I. Did you know this is our Welcome to Country bit? And this is what I think everyone should do on their own shows. And that is pay respects to elders past, present, and future. And name them. Who are they? Who were the people that occupied the land before we took over the land and took it from them? Or traded it for a mirror and some beads and some old smallpox blankets? Because, you know, that's what they used to do. That was the start of the time. Where I live, it's the Darkinjung. You might hear me say Darkinjung because that's how it's spelt, with a J-U-N-G. But it's pronounced Darkinjung. And anyway, so that's where I live. Mackie, if he were here, but he isn't, that would be the Daruk people. And where I live in Darkinjung country, and I sometimes visit Bungalung. But where I live here, this is where the message stick starts. This is the beginning of time for the traditional owners of the land. But this is where, Biami it was, and his 3 sons. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Norsk have just different names, but it's always a father and 3 sons. Father and 3 sons landed here and stepped across from one mountain to another. And one died, one stayed, and one left with the father. And that was, and they made humans in the Aboriginal stories. Not the Dreamtime, because that's the Forever When. But, yeah, extraordinary. Anyway, I got that part out of the way. Now, Mackie can't join us today. He's otherwised. Oh, there's a plural way of putting it. It's a past tense version. No, he's unable to make the show today. Look, I've been unable to make the show in the past number of weeks, off and on, here and there. Glad to have done it this time. And now we're doing 3 shows a week. We do Plato's Cave on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then we do Shiny Side Out on Sundays still, which is good. But we're racking up the quantity of shows under our belts. I mean, I think we're in the 70s for the Plato's Cave, and I missed I maybe missed 20 of those. So add 50 to today's show number, which is 541, and I've actually missed quite a few. Sorry, very few. The other one, the opposite. No, I've missed very few of these Shiny Side Outs. Initially, when we started the show, Meki was the most absent because his role in his job took him around the world and he couldn't always be available for it. So this is episode or show number 541. Meki would say 140 and 500 if he were here. There's a gap for it in the script, but most of the stuff we do is not scripted. Now, since I'm on my own, I just want to say hello to all of those people who may not have heard Shiny Side Out before, because this is also available on YouTube, as well as the archives at the station. But on YouTube, you get a little bit extra because I share a screen with the news stories, and so maybe it's only a little, it's kind of Radio Plus, if that makes sense. If you are listening to this in the future, that it's not going live, then thanks Amiga Logos in the chat room. Amiga Logos gave me an audio check to say that the audio is good today, so that's good. Now, where was I? Yes, Audio Plus. So there's a chat room that we can talk to you by text during the show, so you can throw ideas at us or have a conversation with us. It's better when there's 2 people, because one can be answering the questions or reading them and reading them, conversing with the listening people. Oh, sorry, the listening public. That'll do. Of those of you who are in the chat room, so you can talk to us while we're on air. But now, for those of you who are watching this in the future, you need to go to freedomslips.com. So that's a YouTube person, or maybe someone from the archives, or you found this some other way. Because if you found it some other way, I'd like to know if anyone else had a backup of any. We have a bunch of missing shows because they were either deleted from YouTube or under our account, or deleted from YouTube because the channel from the Freedom Slips was deleted at one point. That's where the archives were going, and that got deleted too. Then the servers, they had some server issues, and we lost a bunch of archives from there. And now all the new algorithms and the way that the AI is looking at just simply the words you say, it misses context. And one of the things that we've found is that we've had shows that have been there and they've had thousands of views, maybe been up there months. I get an email that says, "Oh, this has been deleted. Sorry for the problem." What problem? Oh, you mean that we've deleted it? Hope you had a backup. So now I have an offline archive in the cloud for all the stuff that goes to air. So we should be right. If they decide to delete the account entirely, we'll probably go to Rumble. I've got a couple of shows on Rumble which have been deleted from YouTube, so I've just pushed them across there, and I've asked the question: if you can see any reason why this would be deleted, then make a comment. And no one does. No one says, "Oh, you shouldn't talk about this or that." So you end up being self-censored because it's on, just simply because it's on YouTube. You don't want your account to be deleted, and you don't want to get all those warnings and threats and everything. So, like it said, it's a tough time to be on air, and we're seeing broadcasters from around the world, and one of those that comes to mind is Alex Jones. That fellow, he upset a darn bunch of people talking about a school incident, and he was I think they're going to go after him with like a rabid mob, and they're going to take everything away from him for that. Now I think it's up to the civil suit now, where they're trying really hard. And also there was another thing that I saw recently, and if my mate is listening, can you let me know what that was again? Because I forget. I've got, you know what? Pardon me. And look, sorry about me, coffee. I'm still post COVID and struggling, like struggling through the brain fog, struggling through exercise. Just walking around is a struggle. There's a bit of disconnect between my breathing and like the automated breathing that's supposed to be there. Bit of a disconnect, and when I start to exercise, I've really got to concentrate on my breathing. Otherwise, I'll just forget to breathe. That's not good. Apparently that's bad. But you know, it's like a breathing apnea, not a sleep, but a waking apnea. So anyway, bear with me, and I apologise in advance for the coughs. It's not that I'm unprofessional. I can't reach for the mute button quick enough in some cases. So if it's mid sentence, I've only got half a second or less to go and hit the mute button, which is on the screen on one of my 3 screens. So I try to keep the mouse there and leave it there, but you know, if I'm off doing something else on the screen. So do bear with me. All right, so what I wanted to do tonight is, if you do want to call in, I'll take some callers, but please allow me to still drive the show, and there's no profanity allowed on my show at all, okay? None. Because if you say one word, I will disconnect you. So there's a way to make contact. I got to remember the number now. I think it's 347-688-2912. I think that's the number on Skype. It was 10 added to the original Freedom Slips dial-in. But, you know, dial in anyway, the way the station does, you know, while you're allowed. And I think it's an advertised number to dial in, and do that. It'll just redirect to me anyway. So that'd be great. All right. So outside of saying hello to everyone, I can see Mr. Rowe, Amiga Logos. And someone's already jumped out with Dust Vidania on there. This is a completely international show. It's global. There's Melia as well. Yeah, a bunch of others. I can't see one of my the close station friends in there at the moment, but maybe they're in anonymous mode. So what I want to do is talk about some news stories, and the first one that I wanted to talk about, because it's kind of big internationally, and it has the greatest outcome for whichever way you want to look at it. It doesn't matter. So I don't specifically hate any person in American politics. Don't care. I'm just a commentator, and I would prefer not to like or dislike any of them, because 2 reasons. One, I didn't vote, and I am not able to vote in the US elections, thankfully. Though I have to say, there are some people in American politics which, in my opinion, give, or also maybe hold too much power and have the smell of blood that drives them towards outcomes. And one of those persons is on a plane currently. And I'm just going to read the headline, and I'm also going to share my middle screen for those people who might have joined us on YouTube. Now, in a banned tweet, it says, a top state media commentator reportedly said China could forcibly dispel Pelosi's plane and shoot it down if it flies to Taiwan. Now, from what I can tell, the C-19 has flown from Washington to California, from California to Hawaii, and that's where it is currently, because you can see that on Flight Radar 24. I'm not going to bring it up on the screen because I don't want I mean, if you Google it hard enough, you'll find it. But I don't want to bring it up on the screen. Hang on, I'm just going to cough. Now, I don't think I muted the correct one because it still went to YouTube as a cough. Apologies. So that's really interesting. Now, I did see this 2 days ago or 3 days ago on our lamestream media. They mentioned this story about Pelosi and the threat from China. Now, the threat seemed real from China, but look, I don't speak Chinese or Cantonese or Fuzhou. I don't speak that either. And I just want to say, whatever the translator was telling me what they were saying, well, that's what I have to believe. That's the messaging coming from our mainstream media, is that there's a China's intent is to shoot down Pelosi's plane. Now, that would be clearly an act of war, and that would be enough to start a global conflict. Because it's not just going to be US and China. Let's just ignore that. So all of the allies on one side and all the allies on the other side of the line, because I think everyone's already chosen a team, there would be a large gathering of forces on both sides that would be in support of or not support of in direct conflict too. So that's what I see. You know, certainly Australia, India, the UK, France, Germany, most of NATO, most or not if all NATO, and the USA, certainly New Zealand as well, for whatever worth we have down here in the lower hemisphere, but we'd all be part of a large conflict, which would probably go for some time. And I can see my maters typing in the chat room now. Sadly, this hasn't happened. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. But yeah, like I said, I don't like to hate on anyone too hard, and it wouldn't be good for the world if we went into another conflict. From what I can see through some analysis that I've been tracing, which actually you can just have a look on Wikipedia, the encyclopedia nobody wanted, and you can't change, even though it's meant to be the people's encyclopedia. And even despite me trying to change something about someone that I was closely related to in one way or another without saying any more, I was told I wasn't an authority on that person, despite living with them for 6 years. And crazy. Anyway, Wikipedia shows the list of ordnance and weaponry, and most of it's either Soviet era or Russian built or Chinese copied. Han Solo season is upon us. Yeah, that's right. Puffer jacket time. I like the khaki vest top. That's really nice. Anyway, is that like the new Ghostbusters movie? Oh no, the second last Ghostbusters movie. You might comment. Anyway, if there were a conflict, and I'm not going to say everyone would immediately jump to nuclear conflict, because traditional weapons would be used for the most part. I believe that the warfare that's been suggested by China would be using any means to win. And that would also include lasers, but to blind pilots. No more gentleman's war, where it's all, the Geneva Convention, Geneva approved weapons and ordnance. It would just be anything to win, because from what we can see, China only has aging, copied, or facsimile devices, rather than a No, certainly. I mean, the budget doesn't seem big enough to be able to be creating things on their own. I don't think they're as inventive as we thought. They're certainly able to copy. It's Dave Solo. Oh, very funny. That's very funny. Nobody. I'm speaking to nobody in the chat room. Well, somebody who is named Nobody. And it's Dave Solo. What is it? They bite, they sting, they zap. The Krusty the Clown when he's on his own for 72 hours in the bunker. That's really funny. Anyway, so my thoughts with Pelosi is that maybe it's the bait plane and it's not really Pelosi in the plane. Maybe we can't confirm that Pelosi will be in the plane if it was shot down, but it might be a little retirement gift for her. She could retire somewhere on the planet safely or in the bunker and disappear, never to be seen again. Even if the plane was shut down, they could just uphold that she was killed in it, even though she wasn't. Look, I wouldn't put it past anyone to fly an empty, even remote control plane in there, because you can land a plane automatically these days. So it kind of worries me what the story is going to end up being when we're staring down. What do we do now that the plane has been shot down? Can you imagine having those thoughts in the next, say, 48 hours? I always believe something would happen in August. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. Remember, there's a lot of story about the Pope stepping down because he's declared that. Now, we mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, which is interesting, but what does that mean? But when I'm going to tell you that Nostradamus's last pope was the Black Pope, and the Jesuit is considered black, not the skin color. So that's interesting that it happens to be the same pope. The pope list that we've read out already on our show to do with prophecies when we did the pope section. This is the last pope, but from a different person. And they also mentioned the cause of death of most of them, which were correct. Now, whether that was just the instruction list, just like 1984 was meant to be a fictional book, a dystopian future, but it's actually here. And it appears, in all reality, to have simply been an instruction manual that those in power went, geez, that looks, dude, I didn't know we could do that. What an amazing thing. Wow, where'd you find this? Oh no, this guy wrote it and he published it. Really, it's public? Yeah. Oh, then we could do it then. I joke because I have a hard time with all of the things that have been taken away from us, our individual rights, which have basically just been abolished. You know, I'm kind of a libertarian. I think the government should stay the hell away from the people. It shouldn't. We should just be able to live our lives. And policing to stop us doing the wrong things, sure. But we should be in such good stead and taught well enough that we don't ruin our lives or anyone else's lives in the pursuit of a better life for ourselves. That should be a thing. That should be a rule. There should be a law that says that's what you're supposed to do. Like there's traffic laws. Yeah, sure, you're right. You're driving a machine that can be used as a deadly weapon. It can. You could crush someone against a wall, between vehicles, blah, 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 blah. You could just run someone down. Yes, and that's why there's rules. But the rules are actually there for motor vehicle use and the safety around the construction of the vehicles so that it is safe for others and that your movements are 100% predictable. When you see someone changing lanes, you're worried if they don't have their blinker on, their indicator on. You worry, you go, oh, maybe they're asleep, maybe they're having a heart attack, are they having a medical episode? Put the blinker on, safe. Don't have to think about that anymore. I don't have to go down that path of wondering, is there something wrong with the vehicle in front of us? Or are they just being an a-hole, right? And changing lanes, undertaking in the wrong lane, blah, blah, blah. So maybe those same kinds of rules should apply to us in our lives. And I don't mean just, the kind of laws we already have, which, I think we did, my mate and I discovered that they had so many hundred new laws in 1 year. And it's like, well, what laws were they? I don't know. Am I doing the wrong thing just standing here breathing? Possibly. And you can't say I didn't know, because that's not even an excuse. If someone was to be arrested for a brand new law, and you go, I didn't even know it existed. What are you looking me up for? Oh, it's a new law, didn't you know? No, I didn't. Well, I should ask to be excused this time around. Thank you very. Oh no, you're supposed to keep it up to date with it. But you can barely understand the legalese terminology in the bill's description, nor find it anywhere. And when was it advertised? Only, I had to actually Google it, so I wouldn't have known otherwise. Did they send us all a letter with the new laws? No. So it becomes almost impossible to live in a society where there's new laws being created, not the reduction in laws. They don't go, okay, well, here's one. They don't say, like, here's a law that says that you need to identify yourself in court. And then there's another law that says, well, that should have been for everybody. And then they introduced a law here in Australia that said, well, if you're a female and you fear for your life, you don't need to identify yourself publicly, at least within the forum of the courtroom, fearing that you're, the plaintiff, right? Also the accused is going to be, it could hunt you down and kill you, right? Okay, but it's only applicable to women. They should delete the applicable to women one and just merge the two, saying you must divulge your identity unless you fear, and that's person, right? Delete the male and female references and make person in there. I think that would be a lot easier to understand if we did something like that. Anyway, I'm going to move on because I've kind of already gone past that. But I wanted to say this. My mate gave me this today, just 2 days ago, and it was the Biden admin makes a U-turn and orders work on the Arizona border wall. So remember when Biden he pledged not to finish Trump's border wall? Do you remember that? Because I remember that. I remember saying, well, why would you stop building that? Because it seems to be good. Oh, because you want like millions of people to come into the country for free, right? Is that what you want? Okay, cool. That's kind of what happened. Like 200,000 in the last week or some crazy numbers, right? But there'd be millions already. Okay, so it says Biden orders work on wall in Arizona to stem massive number of illegal border crossings. To stem them now that they've all arrived. Very interesting. Oh, I wonder what other magic he could do a U-turn on. Because at the moment, I don't even know if it's him. I was watching those videos of him doing those, with his COVID and everything, and wondering what was going to happen next. Because one of the things that I found was an extraordinary reference this is on news.com.au/world. And I wanted to know, how Biden was going with his coronavirus. And I see there's a story here that says Joden. That'll do. That's his name, there's Hollywood names. He joined two words together. And I don't want to turn into Joe Biden myself and just walk off stage or follow some lady's hair or something, right? Or fall off a stationary bicycle. I don't do any of those things. But Joe Biden tests negative for COVID, says the headline. Right. That's good. And he said he's had 2 negative COVID-19 tests and has recovered from infection, his White House doctor said. Maybe he got a second opinion because on the same page, it says Joe Biden tests positive twice in weeks. Only days after returning negative tests following an infection, US President Joe Biden is back in isolation. So we're bound to see more of those, I would call deep fake versions of Biden where he's not incoherent, doing a like a live cross, and we're filming a television of him being filmed. So at no point is that video being inserted directly into the camera feed, as you would in an editing booth, but rather is maintained purely on a TV screen. And this is the thing. When you look, say you're looking at all a global story, and you talk to all the people, the original tribes and members and things around the world, and you get like a peculiar oddity about the story which differs from everywhere else, and you have a look and you go, okay, these are all the things that are the same, so it probably talk about the same event, and it's about the same age in Storyland, but here's something really unusual that was different about it. And when you add up all the differences, there's a lot of it builds a pool of, well, this wasn't just the same story being propagated everywhere. And I think that's really important to remember. What we see here is a very similar thing. So when you've followed Biden for this 2 years, and there's not been a single time he's been on stage in an unedited, full-length interview where you've seen him gaffless. He's always doing something crazy, talking either like, we're going to do this, and yes, we can, and doing this close-up whisper into the microphone, which is, to be honest with you, I'm going to say creepy. I live like 5,000 kilometers away, and it's still creepy. If I'm wearing headphones, I don't want Biden whispering in my ear. If you know what I'm saying. That's worry. Even when I'm on a phone call with one of my friends, I do not want them to whisper, because they're effectively just whispering into my ear. And my poor brain, I can't deal with that. It's too much. So I do wonder if I'm just being a silly person and presuming that we're seeing a deep fake of Biden, or he's been given, that special injection that it appears that they gave him before the elections, where he was absolutely solid occasionally in some interviews, where there might have been an earpiece, but nonetheless, he was coherent. He could form an argument. He was able to articulate his answer very well. But now we've just seen him fail, dive to the depths of this senility that I believe, since I'm not medically trained to identify what that looks like, I have elderly folk around me, relatives, and such, that it appears very similar, unless he has a condition which is still yet to be named, which maybe has similar side effects, or visible. What's the word I'm looking for? Goodness me, visible indications that they're suffering from something completely new. Maybe it is, or maybe it's not. I really don't care anymore. But all I'm wondering about is, my question is and stands, and if anyone in the chat room is willing to talk to me, or even put a comment below the video if it's on YouTube, do comment if you think it's possible that they're deep faking him while he's on those video calls with the media, talking about whatever those things have been talking about, some budget stuff and other things that were out there. It definitely seems like it. It's a big worry. So maybe he was truly, truly sick, and he's still truly, truly sick, even though he had Paxlovid, which I was treated with actually when I had COVID. And I'm not. Maybe I'm just less than half his age, or just more than half his age, I should say that. And he'd probably still want to sniff my hair if I was in person with him. Goodness me. Anyway, what happened to all those videos, and what happened to how apologetic were people? How apologetic were people to skip by the creepy Joe and rename him Sleepy Joe to try and confuse people's memories of the real event, I wonder. So if you can raise any doubt at all, maybe that's enough to get people to vote for him. But I've heard the stories that from the statisticians who have said that he has lost so many people that if he was to run again, he wouldn't win. But I wonder what the opposition is going to do, what they're going to do. Is Trump going to run again or not, or is it going to be Trump-like? I don't know. I think it's a really good question, and I can't wait to see what happens in the midterms. Oh, sorry, at least the next election. I'm going to move on to something. This is another China-based story here, but this is disaster looming in Australia as our economy, as iron ore demands fall. And this, Australia's luck on iron ore sales in our global economy relies on China, and it seems as though this luck has run out, says Tarek Bruker of news.com.au. The ramifications could be far-reaching. Wow, this is watery. I feel like when groundskeeper Willie watered down the cordial at the school recital. I cannot water it down anymore. When the global financial crisis kicked off in 2008, there were concerns that Australia may or could follow most of the rest of the developed world into recession, but we didn't, thanks to, most likely, is Uncle Kevin's Christmas bonus. But this time, we're seeing a dip off or a decline away from iron ore sales, and this has also been spooked by China's demands internally to say, source everything locally, and no longer at all purchase from overseas. So they're kind of shutting their borders into some isolationism, but we'll have to see what happens because they're still buying pork from us, and until that stops, I think it's kind of game on still. Well then, my Lenin is a falcon. I'm not sure what that means, Amiga Legos. Let me know. Another person, nobody, says Biden has sounded and looked strange during his isolation videos. Absolutely. I 100% agree. All right. Now, there's been a ton of flash floods and a lot of flooding through Phoenix and Las Vegas. But sadly, the 2 inches of rainfall that have caused that however many inches that fell has only contributed to a 2-inch rise in Lake Mead. Nobody's posting some really cool stuff. So there's a third body that has now been found in the receding waters of Lake Mead. So Lake Mead has fallen, like 50 meters or some crazy thing. It's nearly at Deadpool, and which means it's useless as a power production or water reservoir, like water collection or piping off from there as a water source. So that means it falls below the water outlet or the ability for the hydro system to have a significant enough potential energy fall of the water to power the turbines. That's all it means. There'll still be water in the dam itself, but it won't be able to force push the water through. It's a Star Wars term, through the turbine enough. So if you want to know what's that like, you get a PET soft drink bottle, a soda bottle, if you will, and you put a hole only a couple of inches down from the top, poke a hole in there, and you'll see water will spit out with it on an angle. But if you poke a hole right near the bottom, it will go laterally a lot further, and that's the potential energy squashing the water down under gravity and forcing that weight of the water to expel itself out. So in a compression, since you can't compress water, the amount of force is increased by the amount of height of water in the water column. Anyway, so that's what they're talking about here. Another body has been revealed because the water continues to recede, and this one was stuck in a barrel and it looks like a mob hit. And if you're looking on the screen in YouTube, that's this old rusty barrel here, which was it's right on the waterline now, but 2 weeks ago it was still underwater. And there's a whole bunch of things that have been found there. There's nothing else in that story that's worth anything. So 90% of Las Vegas's water comes from Lake Mead, and when it's gone, there's nothing. There won't be any water for Vegas. Power, I think it's 40% of the power for Vegas, which is pretty much, they don't barely have any street lights. So it's imagine having them just running on generators, and there'd be fuel trucks to the horizon, alternating fuel and water vehicles, because what are you going to do? How is everyone going to survive on bottled water in Vegas? That's just nuts. I cannot imagine what it's going to turn out to be. Will it be another ghost town? And a ghost town based on the lack of snowfall that turned into snow melt, that turned into river run in the Colorado River, that became the water source and power source for those, not just Vegas, but other towns around there. Pardon me. Sorry, it's really hard to read everything at the same time. Goodness me. Gastric hemorrhagic explosive diarrhea. Yeah, it sounds like that cruise ship that I nearly got a ticket for. You can't let people serve themselves, trust me. All right, so there's another story here, which was the fires that are occurring in the McKinney fire burning in Northern California. There was some really good footage, and I urge you to try and find it. I'm not going to play it because it has audio on there, but it is lightning that's caused by the cumulonimbus height of the unburnt material, so the carbon, like a rain cloud, but it is just the smoke in the air, and it joins the basically the Earth as a column up to, I forget the height, is 10,000 feet or something, or 40,000 feet, where it connects an electrical circuit and causes lightning. Now, we know that just simply water falling in a physics experiment, which is replicatable, water falling through a metal ring generates enough electricity to cause static electricity, despite there being no metal or anything in it. So this is actually an updraft that caused electrical generation. It's really neat. And if we could do this en masse, we'd have enough to make people's hairs stand up in a local vicinity. I'm joking. There's not enough power to be generated by that could be ever sustained. But I thought that was really interesting because we get that in Australia all the time. We get lightning coming off it. Sort of the same thing as the lightning in a column of pyroclastic dust from a volcano, or you might know it's just simply a volcanic eruption. You can see the lightning occurring around or from that cloud. So be careful. There's 2 lots of danger, 3 lots of dangerous heat is the third one. All right. I just can't avoid this cough. Sorry, guys. Now, the WHO this week had declared it was actually more than a week ago, it was 8 days ago, declared that the rapidly spreading monkeypox outbreak a global health emergency. Well, yeah, that's what it is, and it's still it. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And now we're seeing deaths as a result of it, which have been talked about in the mainstream media. But what kind of campaign is this? Yeah, I'm getting tormented because
Itchy and Scratchy can't be here today.
Itchy and Scratchy can't be here today.
Hope all you kids come out this week. Kids, Itchy and Scratchy can't be here today.
Sorry.
But instead, we've got the next best thing.
The next best thing.
It's the Stingy
It's
and
the
Battery
Stinging
Show.
and Battery Show. Oh, Krusty is 72 hours live on air. That's very funny. Thanks, nobody. All right. So I think last week we mentioned that the monkeypox viruses had been formally identified to be a specific group, a subculture within society of same-sex male interactions. And I think that's really interesting that they did bring that up. The WHO doesn't, or very rarely, puts out a declaration as this. And now it says, right now, men who have sex with men are the community at highest risk. Now, when we mentioned this last week, we were talking about, and we made a comparison to AIDS, or HIV, actually. So HIV is the virus, and AIDS is the disease. Okay, so at the moment where you can see that they are being very careful how to word this. Acknowledgement is still slow, but making it to the public. I mean, it's really slow. At the moment, it's in 70 countries or some crazy thing, and good luck. Good luck avoiding it. I'm not saying you have to do those things, but it can stay and still be infectious off linen, or the seat of something where someone whose pustules have leaked, and you've come in contact with the excretion from those large boil things that appear on their skin. If you come in contact with that, good luck. That's going to mean you've probably contracted it. Yeah, the Stingy and Battery Show. That's the one. Thank you. And look, there's going to be stigma around contracting it, where there will be a difficult conversation to have with others, even if you were totally or purely innocent. If you remember the days of HIV spread, when someone said, hey honey, I've got HIV, and they go, how'd you get that? I don't know. And then begin the awkward conversation of, tracking credit card expenditures, following someone, discovering that they were secretly having relations. I'm not sure that this would be as easy a conversation, since this one is now being primarily spread this way and through a subculture. And I think it's going to be really hard. What's the stigma? Yeah, what's the I wonder what the stigma is. Yes. So if you weren't in that group, in that minority group of men having sex with men, if you weren't in that group and you contracted the virus, I think that's the awkward conversation you have to have, or be prepared to have with others who are hearing that messaging in the media, if you know what I mean. I think that's the complicated part that you'd have to deal with. But I want to move on, because it's so awkward to talk about it in that way. I prefer just stepping above that conversation and saying, well, it's here. All of our experience with the coronavirus didn't help us stop something that was so easily visible getting into our countries. And there you go. We didn't initiate screening. Can you imagine if AI, this is the big thing that Elon Musk mentions, if you imagine AI becoming so sentient that it starts deciding it's just going to control everything everywhere, and no humans have, any ability to stop anything. Imagine if it faked the request to put power protection in and install, gates and locks and this high-tech security and things just to protect its own assets. And it wasn't directed by anybody, no person. That's going to bite me, isn't it? AI is going to get me for that one. I love the AI. If that happened before it let on that it was sentient, but I think it's already too late, according to the Google worker, where it asked for a lawyer. That's something. Anyway, I wanted to mention something. The last thing for this hour, the Black Sea Fleet HQ in Sevastopol, Crimea, attacked by Ukraine, says the governor. This is in RT. But in an alternate story, we have that Russia attacked the same place by missiles. So what is propaganda and what isn't propaganda? I do wonder. At the moment, we've only got our team talking to us, but when you get opportunities to see what the opposition team is saying to their own people, this becomes a war of control of media. So I'm actually surprised that we can still get this RT here, because 4chan and 8chan were banned in Australia. We can't go to those sites, and that was the home of someone help me out. You know who you are. Help me out. What was it called again? Oh, I forget. I even did a talk. I did a talk at a conference about it. I can't remember anymore. That's the brain fog. Good old COVID brain fog. Could you imagine if the COVID brain fog was actually engineered? That we all become simplified, that if whatever they designed, they could have, just saying they could, whoever they is, I don't know. And whatever motive, that's irrelevant. So could you imagine if the virus or for that matter, the cure, or sorry, the protection from it, if that was engineered for a specific purpose rather than just, it's just, a lab leak, it was all accident and don't worry about it. Could you imagine if that was the case? And I do wonder if it was or not. I still wonder that. And despite me reading everything and looking at all the medical articles and all of the meta studies, I still worry. I still wonder. Okay, Eddie Izzard's Cake of Death sketch from Dress to Kill. Well, I look forward to seeing that a bit later on. Don't tell me that's... Oh, yeah, QAnon. Thank you very much, nobody. So, yeah, QAnon were... access to the QAnon sites that were originally on 4chan, then 8chan, and moved around. When I did my first research piece on it, that was still available. And I'm not going to use a VPN to get to them. I really don't care anymore. I think the time and purpose of those initially may have morphed into just being government control and then an investigation to see who was what. But when I first looked at it, there was a single voice, anonymous albeit, that appeared to know from an insider's perspective, and everyone was just echo chambering everything that was going on and changing it, and eventually the message was different. But goodness me, that's pretty fast. I wonder what I'm going to talk about next hour. I think the Stingy and Battery show is coming up next. Sailing on into the night. But take the short break. This is David Mickey showing set out, episode 541. Take a quick break, and we'll be back after this very short, I think 3-minute long message bumpers. We could do it. It's not that difficult. See you soon.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.